the screen. It just reminds me of how long it's been since we've had a chance to do this in person. But as we were saying at the beginning, those days are coming back. They are fast approaching. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you to Will and Atul and Andy very much for inviting me to this event. I'm really delighted to be here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue Chapple. I'm the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Credit Management. I was appointed as Chief Executive on the 2nd of March 2020, taking over from Philip King, who had been in the post for the previous 15 years. So quite a lot has happened since then. And after I spent the first month like a rabbit in the spotlights thinking, what the hell has happened? When, well, A, being appointed and then B, going straight into lockdown, we set to building a really clear strategic vision for the Institute to take it forward and onwards. So what I wanted to do today is just spend a few minutes just giving you a bit of an update about where we are, what we've been doing, where we're going. But today's session is not about these slides. There's only a few slides. It's about the conversation. So as Will said, let me whiz through the slides and then let's have a really open discussion. I'm happy for you to ask me anything you like. Please don't make me weep, but I'll answer any questions that I can answer. And if I can't answer them, I'll either tell you why I can't answer them or I'll find out an answer and come back to you. So I hope that all makes sense. Will is going to be my beautiful Debbie McGee, as I'm completely incapable of working slides and talking at the same time. So if we could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm sure you all know this, but just to remind ourselves, I don't think it hurts to remind ourselves, the Chartered Institute of Credit Management is the largest recognised professional body in the world for the credit community. We were set up in 1939, and when the Institute was first created, it was created as the Institute of Credit Men. And that's because, as we all know, women didn't really start doing anything useful until the last 12 months or so. So that was understandable, of course. Then there was a hiatus for a few years after 1939 because there were some other really important things going on in the world. And then really since about 1945, the Institute has just grown and grown in stature, both in the UK and abroad. So we became chartered in 2015, and as we all know, that's an accolade that we all hold very dear, and it's made a huge difference to our credibility in the community. Thank you, Will. Next slide. So in summary, the things that we do training. We do qualifications. Our qualifications are Ofqual accredited. They are regulated, and we are regulated as an independent body in terms of those qualifications. We do training, individual training, team training, in-house training, any kind of training you want to name. But really, we do stuff within the credit sector. We do things for the individual, for the team, and for the business. And broadly speaking, that is split that training is for individuals and teams, qualifications for individuals and teams. Development partnerships are where the whole team is involved in the partnership, and there's a pick and mix of things that are available across the individuals and the teams within that. Development partnership is a banner we give to working with partners externally. Cicm accreditation, as you will know, is the flagship accreditation in the industry. It's a bit like the ISO of the credit world. And then the top accolade to show that your business really is top of the class and consistently performing at best practice level is the Centre of Excellence Award. And we only issue a very, very small number of those. Thank you, Will. So members have access to a really extensive range of benefits, and like with most membership organisations, most members only use a very tiny fraction of the benefits that are available to them. And when we survey members, we often find that a very high number of members are not really aware of all the benefits that are available to them. So I never think it hurts to just remind us all what we do have access to. Obviously, our magazine, which always comes up as one of the top benefits whenever we survey members. qualifications, training, the network, not just the branch network, but the network of professionals in your industry, the rest of your tribe, if you like, events and webinars, mentors. We have a mentor hub where you can find a mentor, and you can mentor and you can receive mentorship. The network, as I said, industry resources, professional letters after your name, which will help with job search, credibility in the workplace, networking, advice lines if you need any support, continuous professional development. We've got benevolent service. There's a very extensive list of benefits, and they are all detailed on the website if you want to see them in further detail. Thank you, Will. And membership, just in summary, again, we've really simplified this over the years. We've two forms of membership, the introductory membership and the professional membership. And as they say, affiliate member, studying member, and then the professional member, which is vocational and qualified, but tends to be more experienced. And there's a membership that's tailored for your needs. All the membership subscriptions are available to pay monthly, and we also have the payment app now that you will have seen if your subscription has come up for renewal. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. Well, thank you. So qualifications, again, we've really streamlined the qualifications, and it is again a pick and mix. So you choose which level you want to qualify in, where you want to start your journey. You choose the area that you want to focus on, and you choose the method that you want to study. And we do all of these. So you can study at home by yourself, you can join a virtual classroom, or you can join a physical classroom. And the way we all learn and study is different for each of us. So, you know, we provide all of those options, and some people do a mixture of them. So they're all there for you to work on. And then within the chosen topic areas, there's a really extensive breadth of coverage there, which is why they work at each of those levels. And that, I think, is my quick whistle-stop tour around membership and qualifications, which was what Andy had wanted me to particularly focus on. But if you could just take the slide off, Will.
Yep.
Thanks, see everybody's lovely faces again. Lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
So, but I think so Andy had asked me to just do a little summary of membership and qualifications. But I think really the power of the discussion is to just open up to all of you to ask me anything you want to ask me about your institute. So I'll open the floor.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sue. It's good to just get that overview. But as we discussed before, I think, yeah, like you said, the power here is being able to have that discussion and what people's questions are about. So please feel free to unmute yourselves and pose any questions you may have to Sue. Or if you so wish, then you can pop them in the chat box as well, and then I can pose them to Sue if you like.
I have a question, if I may.
Please do.
Hi, Sheila.
So obviously, because I haven't been attending the branch meetings, etc. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of us here are in similar boats in that they're finding it very difficult to do our jobs. It's getting much tougher out there. As an institute, what would you suggest? How do we tackle this?
When you say getting tougher, do you mean getting tougher because of the impacts of the economy, or getting tougher because of the internal machinations of the organisation?
Because of the economy.
Okay, so that's a really interesting one, because there's a really polarised view out there at the moment. We're finding many organisations are still in the very positive space where there's a lot of liquidity in the economy, there's a lot of cash flowing around, and business failures haven't really started coming through yet. There's an indication that they're starting to go that way, but they haven't really shown through yet. And then there's a smaller but growing number that's finding things are starting to ramp up, but it's coupled with internal situations where staff are still furloughed, the teams are not back to full strength, there's IT issues, all of those things. So it's a combination. So the variety of support that's available is, I think in the immediate thing, it's not about, you don't need to learn any more about how to do your job, it's about the support. So I think we would always recommend that you get yourselves involved in a network, find somebody else to talk to that's in the same boat. We can facilitate that, because if you come to us with the sorts of questions that you want answered, we'll be able to find someone that's been in that same situation. But I think that the real thing is just keep talking about it, and you'll find that you're not alone, and someone else will be facing the same problems. But we're right at this pivotal point where, as I say, it is a bit polarized. We've still got some organizations still really benefiting from the cash flowing around, and others just on the tipping point, and we don't yet know which way this is going to go.
I think it depends on which industry it is.
Of course.
Some have done really, really well out of the pandemic, and others have really struggled. I think it's more the smaller businesses, but I'm finding, because I set my own company up as a consultancy firm only 2.5 years ago, but I've been doing credit for over 20+ years.
Yeah.
I can see the stark difference between how it was back then and how it is now, and it's a lot tougher out there. I find, me personally, because I've always had more, because of the industry and the companies I've worked for, I've always needed soft skills, because it's always been about relationship building. And I'm finding that's very good in debt recovery scenarios, because I'll give an example. I had a debtor I was chasing, and he said, "You know what, Sheila, I owe you a box of chocolates." And I laughed at that point, because I was helping him, because I saw the only way to avoid going to court to get the debt was to work with him rather than against him, because the best thing is to try and negotiate, I think, at the moment, if where possible, of course. The problems, of course, are the ones that go completely silent and are on the verge of insolvency or trying to dissolve their companies. And there's a lot of that going on at the moment.
Yeah, and the ones that go completely silent are always the issue, because you can have the best skills, the best tools in the world, if you just cannot get them to engage. But one of the things that seems to have changed quite significantly over the last 12 months is companies being able to get much more digital access for customers. And of course, when things are really difficult, we find that customers quite often like to do it in that kind of anonymous space, without having to speak to a real person, without having to get involved in those things. So that's become an option. But yeah, know your customer and know your customer's customers, never been more important than it is now. And that's where the best skills are. Bren, are you starting to see anything yet of an uptick in the business failure space?
I mean, we've actually seen a real uptick in the last 3-4 weeks. Obviously, the first payment was due on the CBILS and the bounce back loans. We're seeing a lot of fraud. To be honest, I'm seeing more fraud than I am seeing, directors closing their business. And I'm sure you've all read this, but the government are going to change the striking off at the end of the year. They're going to put stricter measures in. So it's a first paper was submitted, I think, earlier on this month, and they're going to probably hear that probably September, October time. But yeah, so we are definitely seeing, as you know, I'm creditor led, but we're seeing a lot of directors coming to Begbie's and, for advice, and it's not about restructuring, it's, formal liquidations.
Yeah, so it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I mean, we're expecting, it sounds terrible when I say this, but we're expecting when June the 30th restriction, the suspension of winding up petitions ends, we suspect creditors are going to just, basically do it. It's going to be whoever acts quickest is going to get paid. It really is. Yeah. And it's, I know about the security and the Crown preference coming back, but I really do think credit. So what we did a couple of months ago when we did that vote, who will take action when you're allowed to? And I think everyone said the first 3 months. I think every credit team's going to have to be that aggressive, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thanks, Bren. Thank you, Sheila.
Just picking up on a point there, Sue, and actually going back to some of Sheila's points, and you said about sort of networking and finding someone that can support essentially. I'm a salesperson, so I'm going to pick up and plug the East of England branch here. We are really trying to drive that kind of community on our branch page, and actually we've got a really strong community on there. So if you do want to get involved, and there's a really good place and a platform to maybe reach out, and I'm sure there'll be other like-minded people in a similar boat that can help on that front.
Yeah, and I think credit managers are generally a very generous bunch with their knowledge and information, and sometimes it just helps to bounce off another person, even though you know the answer really. Yeah,
definitely. We've got a few questions coming through, one of which actually was mentioned or touched upon there. How critical is the knowledge that the CICM provide in protecting your company, especially regarding fraud and litigation?
So I think because the fraud that we're starting to experience now is fraud that we've not really seen before. There's a number of areas. There's the government support fraud, which Bren was just talking about, and then we're also seeing an uptick in the APP type fraud, which we've not really seen historically, predominantly in the consumer space at the moment, but it won't stay in the consumer space because these things always move across, don't they? And also the cybercrime is increasing. So we're in the process of refreshing the stuff that we already have, but also building some new training and learning packs around that fraud. So we don't have it quite yet, but it's coming. But we're starting to write blogs and update information about it as we find out about it, because it is rapidly coming. And it's, again, a bit like the challenges in the collection space. The APP fraud and cybercrime is a bit sector-led at the minute, but it will spread. So we want to make sure that we prepare our members in the wider industry to look out for this stuff in a new way, because the APP fraud is so simple. It's not sophisticated, but it's very cleverly done, in that it raises itself at a time and a day when you wouldn't be suspicious of it, because you were expecting that activity anyway. And it's really racing through solicitors in house purchase, but it will move out of there and into other spaces.
Okay, there's a question coming through that's linked to that, and it's around whether the CICM will be publishing any data on fraud, if it's fully available, i.e. what are the trends and what different sectors it's affecting, etc.
Yeah, we definitely will, but we don't have anything sufficient really to report yet. We wanted to give the C bills, B bills thing a chance to flush through a little bit, because I think that is going to be fascinating, because the ramifications of that are so much wider than just it's fraud. It's people that have behaved badly, because it's government funded, it's creating zombie businesses, its ripples run out so much wider. So I think we'd like to give it a couple of months, and then we'll start looking at some trends.
Okay, lovely, thank you. How do you feel, or do you feel business understand the real value of good credit management more now than pre-pandemic?
I think some businesses definitely do. We're really seeing a shift in that. I think one of the challenges that's always faced us as credit managers is that we are generally in a part of the business that's a smaller bit of a business that focuses on doing something else, and all of the sexy investment goes on the something else, which is the main thing that the company does. So, but over the course of the last 12-14 months, the thing that the company does has often had to be held in abeyance, and the thing that's left is the credit management teams, and many have absolutely shone during this time. So I think it's starting to come through, but the ways that the accreditation process really helps companies to put themselves at the forefront of their internal business, because it works with stakeholders. It helps the individuals to really demonstrate to other parts of the business what it is they're doing, and the real basic stuff about the liquidity and the cash flow, particularly at a difficult time. This is really starting to stand up now. So we're definitely seeing we're on the cusp of something that actually, out of a really negative situation, is turning into something quite positive for the industry. And I think that those of us that have been in the industry for longer than 10 years or so, most of us would say we never really chose to be in this industry. We just sort of stumbled in it by one way or another, and then ended up absolutely loving it and staying here. but actually more and more now, people are choosing to take credit management as a career because it is a proper viable career, and you can qualify right up to degree level in credit management.
That's actually quite an interesting question has just come through off the back of that, really, and that's what's the CICM doing to make credit a career choice for new or young individuals compared to being an accountant, for example. And this is a topic that, to be honest, we've discussed on a couple of occasions as an important one. I don't know if there's anything specific that you can allude to on that.
Well, so what we can't make it happen, but what we do is we spend an awful lot of time raising awareness. So the three most important things, as I see it, for the CICM is to raise awareness of credit management, to promote and implement best practice, and to support our members in the wider industry. And the raising awareness of credit management is one of the things that we really focus on. So in terms of the younger age group, we do a lot of work with universities. In fact, we're just starting that round again now as the universities are starting to get back to normal. We go to careers fairs, we write in the university presses. So it's all about awareness and making stuff available. We work a lot with apprentices. We work with all of the apprentice providers. We provide apprentices in credit management. We've actually got 2 apprentices of our own now within the CICM, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's all about raising awareness and creating accessibility. And the qualifications and the membership offer up availability at the entry level. So we don't want to be exclusive, that anybody thinks they've got to be fully qualified with 25 years experience in order to join this organisation. You can be at any level.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
But in terms of credit management as a career, that's where we all play a part. Everyone who's a credit manager, sharing that experience and talking whenever you get the chance of how great it is. That's how credit management becomes a career and not a backroom job, which, to be fair, it hasn't really been a backroom job for a long time, but keeping it at the front of conversation.
Lovely, thank you. Going back to a previous question that someone had posed, how do you see the role of the branches within the organisation continuing post-pandemic at the CICM?
Well, I think we've been reviewing the branch network for the last couple of years, because even prior to pandemic, that when branches were first or not first in use, but prior to about the last 5-10 years, branches used to work very effectively because individuals worked in the place pretty much where they lived. The branch would be relatively local to them. They would go to work, they would go home, and then they would go to a branch thing in the evening. Over the last 5-10 years, that has significantly changed in that people generally work somewhere else from where they live. They don't want to be doing all the travelling and then go out again. So we saw branch attendance drop and drop and drop and drop at actual physical events. The exception to that rule is the London branch, because people who work in London and the branch is in London, so they stay to the branch thing and then they go home afterwards. It's a slightly different dynamic. So we've been looking at reviewing the branch, what the branch network might look like. And we have an advisory council, which is elected members, elected by the members, and they're representing that. And we've actually got a working party currently looking at what the branch network should look like, and that's being led by Peter Gent. So I think, as we were talking at the beginning of the call, while we're waiting for people to join, what the last 14 months has offered up is the ability to do stuff like this when it was never done like this before. So I think that blurs the lines, because it creates another way of interacting. It's not the only way, nor do I think in the future should it be the only way, because people mixing with people get a lot of stuff done in a very short amount of time. But it gives another dimension to the opportunity, which means, do you need branches to be quite as specifically geographical as they were before, or is there a different model? But the proposal from the working group is due to be presented at the next advisory council meeting, which is on June the 17th. So yes, it will evolve for sure, because it needs to evolve. Across the country, we've got a number of branches who don't do anything at all, and even struggle to raise a committee. And then we've got some very, very active, well-attended, well-supported branches. So we need to find some way of balancing that out.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel about sales teams having basic training in our industry?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think that credit teams make the best sales teams. And actually in organisations where the credit team is really well thought of and leading in the organisation, it generally is ones where the sales team and the credit teams work really closely together. So absolutely, yeah, all in favour of that. In fact, we do have some companies that already include their sales teams in the entry-level stuff.
Great, thank you. Question here, how do we accelerate the quality in credit management best practice? How do we get more traction? More organisations with the quality badge has to be a key, surely.
Well, yeah, it does. And so one of the things that's on our strategic roadmap is that we're reviewing all of our products and services. And one of the key things for review is the accreditation. We've been doing the accreditation for 10 years now. We need to broaden its appeal. It's quite B2B focused at the moment. We need to find some ways to get it consumer friendly as well. And absolutely, we need to broaden it out across the patch. We've got 53 accredited companies who really operate at a very high level, and that creates best practice. So as part of the review, we're looking at how can we infect other organizations with the desire and the aspiration. But again, best practice is spread by living it, breathing it, doing it. It's spread by our professional members moving organizations and doing a good job in another place, leading the way, showing how things get done. That's generally how the sort of infection, perhaps that's probably a really bad turn of phrase in the current climate, isn't it? That's how the spread works. I mean, we've got Martin Kirby, who's a fellow of the Institute and has just succeeded in achieving accreditation at the 4th company that he's worked at. So that's how you spread good practice in credit management. We need more Martins and more spreading it around. But it's a constant aspiration to keep the level high. So whoever I talk to, whenever I'm talking about credit management, we're always talking at the best practice level. And I always think that credit management isn't really rocket science. It's about doing the right thing to the right customer at the right time, but knowing what the right thing is and who the right customer is and what the right time is. That's where the skill of the credit manager comes in. And it's not a one size fits all, but there clearly are some steps that we can all follow on a regular basis.
Great. Question here about our Irish members. Are there any plans to include more content in the magazine geared towards Ireland?
So we've got, we're doing a review of that, and the information that we can print about stuff has to come from the people. So Sean, who's the editor of our magazine, is always keen to get content and information from you. So if the route to provide that information is not clear, we need to make it clear. But any information that we get that's useful to our members in the wider industry, we will print it if we can. And if there's not room to print it in the magazine for any reason, we'll share it on the socials. Generally, we like to do both, and on the website. We are in the process, you'll all be delighted to know, I'm sure, of replacing the website. So the hideous old clunky website that we've spent years and years just trying to make it work will be replaced with a nice, shiny, modern, new website that does things that websites should do. We
like shiny, new and modern. So yeah. That sounds good. Just a couple of extra comments as well. So Gail has mentioned that she'd like to see more branches move online with a wider audience and more experience, and then maybe some meet up face to face each year with a set agenda. To be fair, I think that's kind of already happening. We're doing that right now, and the reach is there. I think personally, people feel free to speak up if you disagree, but I think a blended approach on both these online events and face to face will probably be the best approach, and it's how you work that. And off the back of that, Richard has asked to to remind you that we held several events in the East of England branch, often in conjunction with London, and we're still quite keen to do some physical events in the future. And we did visit poor old Norwich, based up in the middle of nowhere where no one can normally get to, which was quite well attended as well.
I came to that.
You did indeed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Richard's spot on. I think the blended approach, and actually at the moment there's such a pent up demand for physical attendance. I think, you know, once we get clear of the current restrictions and towards the back end of this year, I think there will be a lot of physical events, and there'll probably be too many. So I think we have to pace ourselves, not too many by us, but, you know, just stuff going on. So I think Gail's right, and a nice plan with some clear agendas for the coming year is what's important. And one of the things that we want to try and do, because the branch attendance is sort of merged now, you know, when we've been on some of the branch virtual events that many of the branches have done, there's people from all sorts of different branches. They're not necessarily branch specific, and they don't really need to be. So I think that's something that we need to take into account as well, which again, to the previous question, helps share the knowledge, it helps keep the standards up, it helps raise awareness, all of those things. So I think we should keep hold of the good stuff that we've experienced during this time, but it means we get the choice, because we won't be just reliant on it. We'll be using it as the right tool at the right time.
A comment from Paul as well. A small thing that could be added is the figures from Credit Safe, where they do the map. Ireland is always missing, apparently.
Okay, so, I'm writing that down.
Jotting down. So
I'm writing it down. I'll find out about that.
Lovely. Having studied with the CICM as a grad, I find all round technical skills priceless, from accounts, law, management. Do you feel enough companies are taking advantage of that offering? No,
I never feel enough companies are taking advantage of that offering. But one of the things that we've done in the last 12 months is we've appointed a head of strategic relationships, John Kane. He's a qualified MCICM, and he is now working across the client base and beyond to support companies in how they can access professional credit teams, what is the right method for them. And for some it's professional qualifications, for some it's a team thing, for some it's just as simple as some really, really basic training. Because one of the things we found, particularly in the smaller end of businesses, during the last 12 months when staff have been furloughed, you've had all sorts of different staff from different parts of the business having to pick up the baton for different roles. And actually that sparked a bit of interest in people who didn't know that credit management existed and now love it. So I'm sure you'll know, we introduced some bite-sized training, just kind of lunchtime learning type stuff that you can just jump on and do, and that's been really successful. So it's coming, and there definitely is an increasing desire to upskill and qualify. But no, I until the whole country is qualified, of course I'll never be happy.
We actually did a series of events on sort of standing out from the crowd as well, with Jules Eames previously, and you know, we've got other things in the pipeline to help sort of facilitate some of that as well. So if anyone is interested in any of those, we've obviously still got the recordings, just to put another plug in there. That's all the questions that have come through on the chat box. I don't know if anyone else has any questions they want to pose. There's another one just come through. We had the prompt payment code where industry sign up to pay suppliers on time. Can we not do the same for credit management, a code that will allow and understand forbearance with organisations?
Yeah, I need to understand a little bit more about what that means, but happy to.
I'm not. I don't know if we need a more sort of clarity on that question.
Yeah, so happy to. I mean, the prompt payment code was government led, and and for things to really stick in the economy, they need a bit of stick behind them sometimes first, and some consequence. So if we were just to and it is voluntary, but it's a government-led voluntary code, so it sort of is voluntary, but it's got a bit of power behind it. So I think you have to create an impetus for these things. Otherwise, what will happen is you'd get all the good companies signing up to be good, but they're already good, and the ones that might be a challenge just wouldn't be interested. So I think I like the idea of it. It would require some real thought for it to have legs and for it to actually make any difference.
Okay, thank you.
Sue, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
And also an observation, and this won't go down very well. I've never thought the prompt payment code was worked in all the years it's been. I mean, it works, but when you look at the numbers from 6-7 years ago, the 1700 to the 2200 that it stands at now, is there not more the CICM? I know there's been a lot of attempts to do stuff, and I know it kind of sits under Philip King Small Business Commission, etc. But is there more CICM could do to raise those numbers, do you think? Or do you think that it's too difficult?
Well, no, I thought a couple of things there. So when the prompt payment code was originally launched, we hosted it for BAYS, but we didn't ever own it. We supported it and we promoted it, and we still do promote it, but it sits entirely in BAYS now. It went to BAYS and Philip went with it. So from that respect, we have very little influence over the entire thing. It forms part of best practice as far as we're concerned, because paying on time is always good for everybody. Paying late is never good for anyone, including the organisation that's actually paying late. But the other challenge is that we were very insistent that you had to be able to name and shame very early on. But there were so many government concerns about that the naming and shaming only recently started, kind of 18 months ago. That's when it started to make a real difference. That's when organisations really, the ones that were already on the register, started to really respond and plans in place, because they didn't want to be named and shamed because they're big organisations. But how you grow it, because it is essentially a voluntary code, and that's always the challenge. So unless it is made mandatory, and that brings with it all sorts of problems, because then you've got a whole resource issue and it becomes a whole little community by itself. So it's a difficult one, but I think it's for us as the professional body and raising awareness and best practice, paying on time is best practice. And I think just keeping that message about what the right thing to do is, and helping organisations understand. And when we were involved in it, when I got involved in some of the discussions with the big companies, it is still thankfully very rare that big companies are deliberately withholding funds. It does happen, but it's definitely, that's the minority of cases. Usually it's just incompetent processes, which is just as bad, but at least it's not quite so manipulative.
Thanks.
Do we have anything new to look forward to on the updated website, and when are we hoping to go live with it?
Well, so I'm not going to say a date about when we expect to go live, because all of you who've been involved in implementing any kind of IT project know that way madness lies. So in the not too distant future, one hopes, if we've all still got hair and eyelashes by that time. To be honest, the aspirations are not massive in the first instance. My key requirements should be easy to navigate, should be easy to join, should be easy to pay, should be easy to find out what's going on. Our current website is absolutely packed full of really good, useful information, but it is such a minefield to try and navigate yourself around it, that a lot of that information just is wasted, really, because it's so hard for people to get to. Things like, you have to do about 75 clicks to get to the right place, and that's not because we think that's a great way to do it. It's just because it's old, clunky technology, and it's the only way that we can get the information on there. So, one of the things on my strategic plan is that we have to be more accessible to members, and the website is the key place. So the first thing that you will see is it'll just look nicer. There'll be more white space, so it will be easier to look at and see. There won't be 75 clicks to get to the most common things. It'll be there right at the front. Do you want to do this, or this, like a normal website? And then over time, we'll be able to evolve the content and the layout and all of those things as we move forward. I'm sure you will have noticed on our social media output, we've started changing all of the assets. So the quality of the stuff we put out, the look and feel of it, that's all changing, and the website, the new website will fall in line with that.
Great, thank you. Any further questions for Sue?
What do you enjoy the most?
What do I enjoy the most? Oh, do you know, Sheila, I feel having worked right across the industry for many, many years. I was head of revenue management at EDF Energy. I spent a couple of years at the Cabinet Office. That's a conversation over a drink if ever there was one. But I've been a member for years and years. I've been a fellow for about 15 years. And when I got the opportunity to work at the Cicm, it felt like it was the job that I'd done all the other jobs in order that I could do. Really, it really did. And I think, the joy for me is working with like-minded people. There's nothing like a conversation with a fellow credit manager. So when I'm out and about talking to organizations, talking about best practice, helping them to achieve the things they want to achieve, that for me brings a total joy.
The cherry on the icing.
Yeah. If there's no more questions, I can tell you a little bit more about some of the stuff that's going on internally, if that'd be helpful.
Well, what I was going to do, Sue, was just share that final page on the slide deck first, just so if anyone does have any further questions or want to follow up at all, the East of England branch email address is there that you can send something across to, and I'm sure that obviously you know where to find the CICM website and phone number, but that's there as well. If we stop the recording there, then we can potentially have 10 minutes of slightly more light-hearted chat, but just wanted to thank everyone for their attendance today in the first instance, and hope that it was very useful for all involved.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, so recording's stopped. You